Hey everyone, welcome to the Evolution Now project. This is podcast number 21. I'm your host, Damian Schnappi, alongside JJ Wolf. Our guest today is a digital creator with over 219,000 followers on Instagram and over 180,000 on TikTok. He's a weightlifter. He's battled addiction and come out the other end a stronger, more focused individual. It's our pleasure to welcome to the Evolution Now project, Mark Hollett.
Thank you, guys. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to get into this conversation, and let's do this.
Amazing, man. It's good to have you here, Mark. What's something that's been on your mind today?
Today, not much. It's my day off from work, so these days are usually kind of more of a relaxed day, kind of just chill out, hit the gym earlier, played a little bit of Xbox, with my day-to-day life being so busy and so stressful, it's kind of nice to get a day where I can just chill.
Absolutely. What did you train today in the gym?
Legs. I hit legs today. Wednesday, because leg day is my longest day, so Wednesday in the middle of the week is when I hit legs. It takes about 2.5, 3 hours on a leg day.
Oh man, I hit legs today too. So any PRs in there today?
Nah, just more. Today was more so light work, just slow and controlled, focused on the muscle group. I really didn't go too heavy at all. I was just aiming for the contraction, the mind muscle connection to kind of just focus in on where I need to hit because my legs honestly have been the hardest part to grow. So I'm really kind of trying to lock in on my leg days to really just focus.
Yeah, I actually hit legs today too, and I PR'd a belted squat, 360 pounds. My third set was actually 14 really slow, controlled reps, so I was super stoked about that. So that being said, let's dive in. So we got some heavy hitting questions, some darker topics, but you know, I think it's going to be fun. So you told me, Mark, that you spent 10 years spiraling in a very negative way, drinking, reckless behavior. So
Oh
two
yeah.
questions. How did your struggles with drinking and partying begin? And when did you know that you had a problem?
So they kind of began, I want to say they kind of began in high school. You just hit the party phase. But for me, I lost a close friend of mine my senior year of high school. And from that moment on, I kind of just found comfortability in the bottle more so than not. It kind of was a way for me to escape reality, kind of escape what happened, the way it went down. Not only that, the where my parents live, there's a cemetery like literally in my backyard, and her grave was like eyesight from my bedroom window. Um, so I never really escaped it. So my escape was partying, drinking, and just kind of being reckless to anything to basically get out of my house in any way, shape, or form. And usually in high school, man, Friday, Saturday nights, it's partying. That's what we did. There I did have sports, but mentally I just wasn't there. I kind of my senior year just was kind of a blur from that moment on. I don't really remember much. It's just kind of I got too far into the hole, spiraled, and then from there on, man, it was just a downward trend.
Hmm. So was there a moment where you were like, "Oh, this isn't just fun. Hey, let's have a drink." Like, was there a moment where you're like, I don't know what to do. I feel powerless." So was there anything like that?
So the moment actually was I tried to commit suicide while I was hammered. That was the moment. I hit rock bottom. It was September 27th of 2018. Uh I was in my house by myself, drinking, just doing reckless stuff, and I just said, you know what, man, if this is what life is, I don't want to do it anymore. And I tried to commit suicide. A buddy of mine randomly just happened to show up at my house. When it happened, found me in my living room, called 911. Uh, Next thing I know, I woke up in a hospital, and I was like, what the hell am I doing with my life? That was kind of the moment where it was either usually for a lot of people that is their moment. They get to that point where it's ended all, and then when you don't end it all, you realize that it's not you that actually wants to go, it's just something inside of you that wants to go. And that's what I realized. I didn't want to I didn't want to kill myself. I wanted to kill whatever was inside of me that was causing all this pain. So a really good friend of mine moved in with me about a week later and was kind of like, hey, listen, man, like, we're not doing this anymore. You're not doing this anymore. And he's like, we're going to start going to the gym. And I was like, dude, no, I'm not doing it. And he was like, yeah, one or two options. Either you go to the gym with me, or he's like, all right, beat the shit out of you, and then you go to the gym with me. He's like, one way or the other, you're going to the gym with me. And he forced me to go every day for 6 months to a year. And he saved my life.
Wow. Wow, man, that's an incredible story of, overcoming whatever that is inside you, and by the grace of a higher power, perhaps, your friend appeared. I mean, what a miracle that was.
Yeah,
And
and it was a friend of mine that I haven't seen in a while. Like, he just saw my lights on in my house, and I always left my doors unlocked, and he just drove by, just stopped, and was like, I'm just gonna pop in and say what's up. And that was that.
do you ever feel like you're here? Do you feel now that you're here for a purpose, like you're here for a reason? Like,
Yeah, I do, and that's a newer struggle for me. Like, I do feel like I'm here for a purpose, I'm here for a reason. I just don't know what it is yet. I've
what would
spent so
be
long working on myself and trying to pull myself out of that hole. And now that I got out of that hole, it's like, what's next? Like, what am I here for? Why didn't this actually go down the way I expected it to go down? Because, I mean, to be honest, I didn't think I'd make it this long in life. I really didn't. I was convinced I would never see 30.
wow. Wow. Yeah. And you never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen in the future. And that's a pretty dark outlook. And to have that feeling like, I don't even know if I'm going to be here, in the future. And so I would love to ask you, it seems that sharing stories from what I've seen of other people and in the world, celebrities, people like Brian Burchard or Tony Robbins, like sharing these stories of how you overcome your darkest moment is a shining light to other people that are dealing with massive struggles and challenges and self-doubt. And so you've got a huge following on your social media. I've just been introduced to you. What has been the process of growing that following, and how do you share your story with others? And do you feel like that is part of your purpose now, is sharing your story?
I feel like that. I definitely do feel like that's part of the purpose, is to kind of share my stories, share my beliefs, to let people know, like, you're not by yourself. Like, plenty of us are either there or have been there or have gotten themselves out of it. There's just so many people that feel exactly how you feel. So I feel like that's part of it. I mean, the social media thing, honestly, it just happened one day. Like, I wasn't trying to do this. Like, I wasn't trying to blow up. I wasn't trying to be a content creator. I just had a couple videos on TikTok go crazy. And I just ran with it, man. And then I was like, you know what? If I'm gonna do this, let me actually do this. So I've been putting a lot of effort into it the last 2 years on not really sharing my story. Because that's still an area that, like, I haven't really touched on social media, but more so, it's relatable content for moments where, whether it's in a relationship or depression or just whatever the case may be, it's just relatable for you to understand, like, yes, other people feel like you. I felt like you. There's thousands and hundreds of thousands of others that do feel like you. I mean, I've shared part of the story where well, I shared the suicide attempt, and I've also shared the passing of of my close friend in high school. But as far as, like, the rest of it, I mean, a lot of people don't know that I struggled with drinking. I mean, I didn't even know it was a problem until it was a problem, and that's usually how it goes. Like, you never think that I mean, I don't have to drink. I choose to drink. That's how you look at it. You look at it more so as, yeah, I'm choosing to do this. It's not a problem. It's not an addiction. But when you hit rock bottom because of it, that's basically what the addiction is. You're addicted to the feeling it gives you, the temporary feeling it gives you, the numbness that it gives you. And then you got to wake up the next day, hungover, out of it, dealing with all your emotions because you've been bottling them up, and now they all come back. So the first thing you do again is the same thing you did last night. You start drinking again. Once your day's over, you're like, I got to get this out of my head. And you start drinking again. That's basically what it was for me. And it just got to a point where honestly, I didn't even know it was a problem. I just thought I was having fun.
So many people think that way. And so, the next question on the list would be, what has been the most challenging aspect of recovery for you, Mark?
The most challenging part was losing friends. That was the toughest part, man, because there were people that, we did everything together. We were best friends, ride or die. They called, I was there. I called, they were there. And the moment I stopped, they just disappeared. So that was the toughest part, learning to be alone with myself and learning to be alone with those feelings, because I spent 10 to 15 years just drinking it away, and then when I hit the year mark of sobriety, that was really a struggle because everything just started to come back. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I got to a point with drinking, I thought that my demons were there because of the alcohol, but it was the other way around. The alcohol was there because my demons were there. And that was the only way I knew how to keep them at bay. And then when you remove that out, they just came back in full force. So it was a struggle to deal with it sober. So that the gym, man, that's where I go. When I have a bad day like that, I go to the gym because it's me against me. It's the man in the mirror, and I'm not going to lose.
100%. And like you said, the thing you did yesterday is the thing you're going to do today. And I think that's one of the appealing things about bodybuilding is that you have routines and it helps you build discipline as a man, as an individual. And you pair that with the proper nutrition and you track all that stuff and it manifests and you become leaner, more defined, or bigger. And it's a beautiful process that it is creation through destruction because, you break the muscle down when you lift and when you rest, you recover. You said something very, very, very powerful is you went from this shift of I want to kill myself to I want to kill this thing inside of me. And it takes a pretty high level of consciousness. And you mentioned about the loss of your friend is what triggered this whole process. But a deeper part of the process, you lost friends when you changed again. So that's super interesting. And you say you're looking for a purpose, and no doubt that spreading your message to other people who are going through something similar is part of that. And it's the thing Jordan Peterson talks about. It's the proverbial dragon fight. There are dragons coming for us all, and they will find us. There's going to be a confrontation with the dragon, whether it's paying a bill, whether it's confronting an addiction or a toxic relationship. Now, you can either allow the dragon to come and find you in your home, that's bad, or you can go out and slay the dragon. And depending on which one you choose, you activate a different part of your brain. So if you wait for the conflicts of life to come and get you, it activates the part of your brain associated with defensive aggression because it just comes to your house and you're. But when you confront things, you are using the part of yourself that has an aiming mechanism. And we are bipedal creatures that pick a target and move forward toward that target. And that's the thing that creates positive emotion. Because when you say, I want to do A, and you take a step, no matter how small toward it, that creates positive emotion. So what you did by confronting your addictions is you went and slayed that dragon and you said, well, I don't know what to do next. And perhaps you're doing that. You found the gold. And what that gold is are the thought processes, the habit shifts, and the positive habits you've built into your life to offset that addiction. Now you slayed the dragon. And what do dragons hoard? Gold. Gold is all that intellectual information now that you are sharing with the world. And the more you do that, the more you're going to see that is part of your purpose. So I just want to applaud you for being so candid with all the things about your journey and the fact that you're still here. And it's funny, you can escape something from a weak standpoint, which is drinking, or you can look it head on and transcend it. So it feels like you're still battling that darkness. And
oh yeah, every day.
we always do, but you're transcending it by confrontation.
Taking the fight to them. You know, it's more so this is something that really stuck with me. Something that Andrew Tate said. He's like, as a man, you're going to fight regardless. You're going to. He's like, there's going to be the fight's going to be on two fronts. Either you're going to be at peace with the world and at war with yourself, or at peace with yourself and at war with the world. Either way, you're fighting. And the fight you don't want to fight is the fight within yourself, because that's the battle that most people lose, because they'd rather be okay with the world out there and then tear themselves apart inside when they get back inside their four walls. I'd rather it the other way. I'd rather walk out my door and fight, you know, and then come home and be like, you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'm at peace with what I did. So that was something that really, really, really stuck with me. I'd rather be at peace with myself and at war with the world than at peace with the world and at war with myself.
Right on, man. That is a powerful stance to take, and a realization that we want to stand in our power and bring the fight out, not have it inside, not bring it in our home. You know, if the dragon ends up in our house, the house is going to burn down.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, you know, for such a controversial person in today's world, that Andrew Tate, so many of his messages are just right on for the attitude that a man needs to have to be able to be strong, to be successful, to be determined, to be top G or whatever it is in their own arena. And
you have to, because no one's coming to save you. If you're going to wait for someone to come save you, you're going to be waiting your entire life. No one is going to save you. The only person who can is yourself.
That's a big realization, man. I actually lost my mom in May to cancer. And it's been, thanks. Yeah. God rest your soul, Mom. I think about her a lot, and it's amazing just how much more I'm thinking about her now that she's left this earthly plane. And the biggest realization I've had, and this is what I said when we were at the graveside with family and friends, and you just don't know how much time you have, you know, with your loved ones, with yourself on this earth. And it's so important to take action. Whatever it is that you want to do, do it. Do it now. You do not know how much time you have. And you know, it's up to us. Nobody's coming to save us, like you said, and it's up to us to take that action. You know, and something I've wanted to do for years. My mom lost the ability to walk when I was a teenager. She became handicapped, and I used to watch the Boston Marathon I think in Natick on the side of the road with my mom and my cousins. And then I was a cigarette smoker as a teenager, got into running in my 20s off and on. And I always thought, you know, bucket list, life achievement, I'd love to run a marathon. Like, it just seems like a impossible task that yet thousands of people do achieve. And you pick the average schmo off the street and say, hey, run 26 miles. They're going to fall down. You can't just run. You have to train. You have to
absolutely,
you know, be determined. And losing my mom in May, the realization that I had is that it's not going to happen until I decide that it's going to happen. And I decide to come and save myself and make myself do the disciplines or take the actions required in order to achieve that goal. And so now I'm on week 9. 8 weeks ago, I was doing 2-mile short runs, 4-mile long runs. The 4 miles felt difficult. Now I'm doing 4-mile short runs, 7-mile long runs. And when I run 4 miles, I feel like I could run all day. So it's amazing to see the progress that happens when we come and save ourselves.
Absolutely.
A quote, Mark, that you mentioned to us: if God puts a Goliath in front of you, he must believe that there's a David inside of you. What would you say is the Goliath in your life now, and how have you developed your David?
So honestly, the Goliath now is myself. I have to look myself in the mirror every day and understand that I got to keep moving forward, regardless of, you know, my mental health struggles or whatever the case may be. Oftentimes, I'm my own worst enemy. You know, I don't remember who said it, but someone said your mind can either be your greatest ally or it can be your greatest adversary. One or the other. There's no in between. It's going to be one or the other. Mine happens to be my greatest adversary. It's always going against me. So I have to fight constantly every single day, to just beat that side of me. And some days, I do fall. I'm not perfect. I'm not going to sit here and act like, I have it all figured out, because I don't. But every day I wake up and I'm ready to go. And I count the small victories, man. That's a big thing people don't understand, is you got to take those small victories along the way. There's a lot of people who come to me with weightlifting and they're like, it's been 2 months and, I've only lost 4 pounds. I'm like, you lost 4 pounds? Like, that's a win. Like, what are you talking about? Oh, well, I wanted to lose 10. Okay, well, you lost 4. You're new to this. Like, you don't know but you lost 4. That's a win. Oh, your waist got smaller, but the scale didn't move. That's a win. Like, I tell people, you got to count the small W's because they add up. And then when you look back, you realize, holy shit, I actually did it. Not realizing you did it because along the way you just kept kicking yourself in the ass. Oh, I didn't do this right. I didn't do that right. I didn't do this right. And that's the mindset I'm trying to get myself into, is counting those victories. I have my days where all I see is losses. And then I have my days where all I see is victories. So right now, my greatest Goliath is myself. I haven't really overcome that part of me yet, but it's a work in progress.
100%. And look, some days my biggest enemy is my mind. But then I've noticed when I do something super intense and I stay in it and I finish it, I get that resolution. I look back and go, I love that. I love the storm. And I think we mentioned this on previous podcasts. There's a part of the psyche that wants to be coddled, it wants to be warm, it wants just all the pleasures in life. But then there's a raw, untamed part of the psyche that wants it. I want it cold. I want it raining. I want it brutal. Because why? Because as a man, I want to test myself. So there's this quote that said, and God said, love your enemy. And I obeyed him and loved myself. Because the more interpretation plays a big part in how your brain grows and who you grow into. So if the only part of your psyche that you experience is the shadow side that wants to beat you down, it doesn't allow you to develop the counter end of that spectrum, the powerful positive part. And it's that battle within. So yeah, there are times when my mind is whipping my ass, but I haven't figured out the exact process, but there is a process where it flips and I go, oh no, I get up on top of it, and that becomes a fuel source. And that, we use that in weightlifting, aggression, being able to be aggressive when you attack a heavy set. There's nothing better than that. What happens though is if you do not have a well-defined psychological landscape, that aggression can spill out to other people and you can be a tyrant. And cultivating that security, that's what it is. When you feel secure and you are aware, you can use that aggression in those perfect little places. And if someone comes at you with something that you disagree with, you can go, okay, I'm saving my aggression for me. And you're curious going, well, why do they come at me with that aggression? They're probably going through something. And the more you can understand that and have that compassion toward the external, it reflects back to yourself. So mark that those demons that are beating at you, if you can love them and use them, it's almost like getting your horses in a row. It isn't easy, and it's not like do it once and you got it. It's a habit, and it's a habit of awareness.
Oh, absolutely. So when it comes to that, it's kind of like it's kind of like a coin. Part of you, one side of you hates your demons. Hates the fact that they're there, but there's another part of you that sits there and it's like, those also made you who you are today. If it wasn't for them, you wouldn't be where you are, because you wouldn't have been able to push through all of that stuff that it put you through. So that's another front that people, along with myself, don't really understand is, people kind of, I've heard a lot of people talk about it where they say things like, oh, you know, loving your demons is wrong, or this, that, and this is wrong. It's like, no, it's a part of who you are. It's a part of what made you you. It's a part of what got you to where you're from. Whether you see it that way or not, it's true, because overcoming them in that moment, you built a new foundation, and they're always going to be there to push you. Maybe not in the ways that you want, but they're going to push you. They're going to test your limits. You're going to test your limits against them as well, because that's the only thing you have. If you don't have anything to test it against, you're just, there's no motivation, there's no discipline, there's no focus, there's nothing there. You're just kind of wandering aimlessly. But when you lock in and it's like, okay, I'm going to push myself on this side of things and see how far I can go, it'll help you. I don't tell people to rely. I tell people to don't rely on them, but they're also a source of motivation, a source of fuel for you, a source of your strength, of your courage, of who you are. You know, facing them head on is never easy, but when you do it and you overcome in those moments, you're like, yeah, you know, I can do this. You know, it gives you that sense of fulfillment, that sense of like, you know, nothing can stop me. If my own head can't stop me, no one can stop me.
It's a super powerful realization to have. And it's that struggle and that push against resistance that builds strength, right? Like that's why we pick up heavy weights. Exactly. That's why we push the bar, because it's a pushing against something that builds that muscle, that builds that strength. I saw you have is that a butterfly tattoo on your hand?
Yeah, it is.
Metamorphosis, you know, and they say that if you open the cocoon as the butterfly, as the caterpillar is going through metamorphosis or ready to burst out of the cocoon, but if you open that cocoon, that butterfly will not have the strength to fly. It needs to struggle and push and then break out of that chrysalis in order to build those little muscles, the muscular strength, in order to push against the breeze so that it can go on its journey, so that it can suck up some nectar, so that it can find another cute little butterfly to go to the dance with or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's the same way when you plant flowers or you plant crops. I mean, you don't bury them and then dig them up because they're at a dark place. You sit there, you let them do their thing, and you let them push themselves out of it. It's that happens in every avenue of life. So why wouldn't you use your own darkness to your own ability, to your
shadow? Certainly.
Yeah, why wouldn't you do that? A lot of people,
you know, I'll answer why you wouldn't do that, because it's hard. And it's painful.
Oh, absolutely. It's terrifying.
Yeah, it's the isolation. You know, Tim Grover was the trainer for Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, and he said that Kobe and Michael, they craved that time in the darkness, that annual trip into hell to rebuild themselves stronger than before. And I read that, and I was like, that's such a refreshing way to look at the process. The most intense, brutal, painful aspects of transformation happen in the dark. They happen by yourself, and it's not a one-time thing. It's like a consolidation of your own mind. It's callousing over, like David Goggins talks about. If you didn't say no, if you didn't hit the bell and tap out, how much further could you go? And transformation, when a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly, that caterpillar's dead. That body it's gone.
That part of you has to die.
And why wouldn't that feel horrible? And that's something I realized in my own development is, as I stretched myself psychologically, spiritually, physically, emotionally, I'm like, this is horrible. But I shifted, I'd get through it and I'd look back and go, how much longer can I stay in that horrible feeling? And as a consequence, I got tougher, and I would be able to make that shift from, oh, my mind is kicking my ass, to, no, this is what we want. And it's knowing that, hey, when it gets pain, like in weightlifting, it's the last 2 reps that are going to grow the muscle. The last 2 reps are the most painful, and it's the toughest ones. But if you go into the weight training session going, I'm looking for the struggle, I'm looking for the pain, you can bring that best part of yourself that's going to allow you to successfully get through those reps rather than get swept up by the wave of pain that everybody seems to rebel against. And it's that subjecting yourself to that which allows you to transcend it, and it allows you to better deal with it in the future. Because if you always tap out, if you always give up, if you always look for a hand, you don't develop your relationship with your intensity and with that pain barrier. And that you're just going to get flattened at the same place in different aspects of life. Things are going to get tough. You're going to need a hand. You're going to be alone. And what are you going to do? You're going to look for the light. You're going to look for the group, and you're going to look for the easy road, versus let yourself go through the pain and the isolation, and that you die. That part of you dies, and it feels horrible. But just like the phoenix, you rise from your ashes and you become stronger, and you can take on more, and you can be and do more.
That brings two things into my head. One's from Deion Sanders. You know, he said, if the enemy isn't coming against you, it's because you're walking with him. And I use that in a sense, like if my own demons aren't fighting me, it's because I'm working with them. And then Jordan Peterson, if you stare into the abyss long enough, you'll see the light. And I forgot the guy who he was talking to. He says, well, you know, are you willing? He's like, what are you willing to bet on it? And he's like, I'm willing to bet my life. He's like, because you have to come out the other end. It's like a tunnel. You know, you go through the darkness it seems like it never ends, but eventually you do see the light. The darkness is where you do the work. The light is where you spread the message. Like,
love that.
It's that simple. You work in the dark, you spread the message in the light. That's what they're for. The darkness, you're by yourself, no one can see you. It's you against you, you're fighting. The light is kind of like a spotlight. Everyone's staring at you. Everyone's watching. What are you going to do what are you going to say to the world, or what are you going to say to the people in your life? You know, hey, how did you do it? You know, you were in this dark place. How did you do it? And honestly, I just tell you, but I just did it. It sounds that simple, because you can't describe the work you put in the dark, because the only way you can understand it is you have to be there yourself. Like, you have to. I can't explain to anyone how I got out or how I fought it. You have to do it on your own.
Right. And people shouldn't confuse simple with easy. Just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. And I like that Jordan Peterson quote. He also says, if you look into the abyss and it's dark and things are bad, you haven't looked deep enough. So fundamentally, what do you believe? Do you believe life is good and it's intermittent bouts of pain, or life is pain and there are intermittent bouts of good? And you get to choose, man. You get to choose. And whatever you choose, that narrative, it's going to grow, and it's going to give you enough evidence to support the claim. Whether life is bad and there's small periods of good, or life is good with periods of bad.
So this is the way I'm going to put it. Life is bad with periods of happiness, which is why everyone strives for it.
Fair.
Happiness isn't easy. Majority of the world is dark, is cruel, is ugly, is mean. Everyone's looking for that glimmer of hope, because that's why it's called the glimmer of hope, or like a beacon of light, because those are rare moments. Life's a battle. Life's a journey. It's up, down. You know, I forgot who said this, but it's kind of like a heart monitor. How do they know you're alive? The lines go up and down. How do they know when you're dead? It's just a flat line. If you stay in that flat line, your life's going to be nothing. There's going to be no adventure. There's going to be no purpose. There's going to be no fun. You know, without the dark, there's no point in the light, because if you're always in the light, you're going to be like, what's the point of just, you know what I mean? It dulls the effects of happiness, of love, of comfort. It dulls it, because it's just readily available. It's only worth it if you fight for it. So that's why you have to look at life as a struggle. It's a struggle for every single person on the face of this planet. Whether you're rich, poor, middle class, black, white, whatever you are, everyone's fighting throughout their life for purposes to find their purpose for one, to be happy for another, Because if it was just that easy, everyone would be happy.
Just to stay alive.
Exactly.
I grew up north where we have snowy winters, and if you're not prepared, you'll die. It's cold.
Yeah.
People living outside. There's people every day struggling just to keep the body functioning. I got to feed myself again. I got to hydrate again. I got to make sure I get some rest. I got to go to work. Got to feed the kids. And so I would love to ask you to expand a little bit more in whatever way that you feel called. When you describe your demons, is it self-doubt? Is it bad habits, eating too much ice cream? Is it being too angry at people that are close to you? How would you, what are some of these demons that you might want to bring to the light in this conversation?
It's more so my past than anything. My past haunts me. The big one is, when you never escape the loss of a loved one, it becomes almost impossible to deal with. And that was something that I never truly processed. So I have a lot of, I wouldn't say resentment towards myself, but a lot of kind of like, dude, what the fuck? Like, why didn't you just take the break? You know what I'm saying? It's more so I look back and it's like things that I could have done differently, that I should have done differently. But then I also look at it in that light where it's like, well, now. Just because you didn't know at 17 doesn't mean you failed or things fell apart or you ruined your life. But that's the biggest one. I feel like I wasted too much time in there. And now that I'm out, it's kind of like, damn, I wasted 10, 15 years in there. With mental health stuff like that. I mean, my parents, so I came to the realization of this a couple months ago. I saw it was a quote and it said, the oldest child grows up with their parents. The youngest child is raised by their parents. So I grew up with my parents. They weren't they were physically there. Always, both my mom and my dad were physically there. They just weren't there in the ways that in the moments when shit hit the fan that I needed them. And that's nothing against them because they were going through life too. They had to learn and understand how to raise a child. How do you deal with this stuff? And when you start like myself doing a lot of dumb shit, your parents are learning that as you go through it. So you can't say, hey, you messed me up, because they didn't know how to deal with that either. Because for example, they've never been through that, or maybe they went through it a different way, or certain things. Like when my friend died in high school, I was so angry at my dad, so angry at him for years, because the only thing he ever said to me in that moment was, the older you get, the more it's going to happen. Get used to it. I was so mad at him for that, because I needed him to be there in a different, but again, he's learning that process with me. And we've talked about it over the years, and he understands that that probably wasn't the right way to handle it. But in his moment, and he thought that was, and honestly, he was right. That was the best advice that he gave me. It's helped me in future situations where I've lost people, not to let it consume me the same way this one has. So I've learned to be like, okay, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. You need to learn how to deal with this. And he probably could have worded it differently, but that's exactly what he was saying. Is the older you get, the more it's going to happen. You got to learn how to deal with this, man. But when you're 17 years old and that's what you're told, it's kind of like, do you even care? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that is a very tough, masculine, rough way to say it. Toughen up, kid. People die.
Exactly. And he
he
wasn't, my dad was around, but he was always working. So I was around my mom a lot and a lot of women. So when things kind of really went wrong in my day-to-day life, I was learning from my mom and her friends. I really never got the opportunity to learn from my dad because he was working from 5 a.m. to 9 at night. I was in bed. So a lot of stuff came from my mom, not understanding that the masculine and the feminine raise you two different ways.
100%. So I'll say this. Being a fully integrated man is difficult because the masculine is order, it's power, it's strength, it's protection. You want to be hard. To create structure and to create order, you don't feel, you do it. You make your mind stronger than your feelings. But to recover, you need compassion. Compassion isn't being soft, it's being vulnerable. And it's very nuanced, but it's very different. Soft person breaks. A vulnerable person can receive, and then they can reflect what you need to hear. So how do you walk the line of, I'm a strong man, I do what I need to do, fuck my feelings, but then something happens where someone dies and you got to shift. You got to shift into that part of yourself that goes, hey man, I want to put forth security. Now, a lot of guys go, security is make my mind stronger than my feelings. Just shut up and do it. It's simple. Okay, I get it. But there are feminine aspects to our psyche that require us to deal with our emotions. Otherwise, we're just going to create knots. And yeah, those hard habits can get you results, but you know when there's things that are all knotted up in your inner life that need to be dealt with, and you can't just lift them away. You can't run away from them. And that's hard because the part of you that wants to be hard and disciplined and focused and strong, when you shift into that compassionate vulnerability, you're losing. You're losing in that game, but you have to understand that, okay, let's let that part step back and let's shift into this other part. And that when you can do that properly and you're not attacked for it, because if you have a friend that is super hard and doesn't do that, and you go to them with emotions, they're going to be like, you're a pussy, like man
Absolutely.
up. And then you'll rebel against that, making everything worse the next time. You have to be compassionate. But when you create a system that's balanced, and that's the positive king archetype, you create order in your internal landscape. And that way you are secure enough to be compassionate and vulnerable where you need to, but then you can shift back into those hard habits that keeps your kingdom fortified. And look, if you didn't have those tools growing up, you can only play with the tools you were raised with. So I'm guessing your dad didn't have that conversation with your grandfather. It was just man up and get it done.
My grandfather
tough cookies.
My grandfather was a military man, Korean vet, stuff like that. He was a hard ass dude. He didn't do that kind of stuff. My dad was similar in a lot of ways, without him realizing it. But back to what you said, it's like, how do you deal with it? So you got to look at it in two aspects, and that you brought up both aspects, the compassion and the kind of get over it kind of thing. When you get really hurt, what do? You sit in it, you recover, and then you move forward. That's how you got to look at these things. So when you're knotted up inside and you're really going through it, you have to sit in it. You literally have to sit down with yourself and process it all, go through it all. So when you get up, you can move forward. You can't get up and move forward with a broken leg. You have to sit in those uncomfortable emotions. It's the same way, like as a kid, when you're hurt, you go to your mom. When you get hurt, she puts a Band-Aid on it. She helps you recover. And then you move forward. And your dad tells you, get back on that bike. He doesn't tell you to get back on the bike when you're gushing blood and some dads do, but for the most part, if you're seeing bone from something, he's not, get up and brush it off. He's going to go get your mother. And you're going to sit in it, you're going to recover, and then he's going to tell you, get back to work. That's exactly how you have to do it. When you're in the middle of that internal struggle, and again, I'll bring up Jordan Peterson again. If you really want to find something in your life that you need to fix, that you want to fix, that you have to fix, close your bedroom door, turn the lights off, sit at the edge of your bed, and ask yourself, as many times as it takes, what's one thing that I am doing wrong? What's one thing that I know I'm doing wrong? And what's one thing that I know I can change? You're going to get an answer, It's not going to be the one that you want, but it's going to be the one that you need. And that's usually the problem is it's not the answer someone wants, so they ignore it and go until they try to find that. No, when you get that answer, that's the answer. That's what that fix is what's going to lead to fix what you want fixed. It's a need versus a want. Everyone wants something, but what do you need? And you have to ask yourself that. And if you do it long enough, I've done it. It's ugly in there, man.
Ask and ye shall receive.
Exactly.
Ask, there will
But
be a
you know,
response.
that's the thing, man. I try and tell people, I'm like, as humans, man, we don't know what the hell we want. Every day, everything's changing on what we want, wants, needs. That you need to literally close out the world, sit down and talk to yourself or talk to God or whatever it is that you do and be like, help. How do I do this? How the hell do I fix this? What is it that I need to fix? Because 9 out of 10 times, what needs to be fixed isn't what you want to be fixed. But what needs to be fixed will help what you want get fixed.
Yeah, Carl Jung said, what you need will be found where you least want to look. And that's exactly what you said. It's messy work. It's messy work. Emotional work is messy work. Because
super messy, man.
It's not like taking off a coat. It's bringing up the past and then recontextualizing it in a powerful way. And that's the thing. The more you turn over painful memories and you go, well, what is the positive? What can I derive from it? You change the past. You change your interpretation of the events. But the tricky part is when your energy is run down and when you're angry and you're feeling isolated, the weak way of looking at the world comes back up because you don't have the energy to channel yourself into looking at the world from a position of strength. But over time,
that's where your real strength comes in. Because when you're in those moments and you're back in that, and I've been guilty of it. I've been guilty of falling back into old habits when shit has hit the fan. I've done it a couple times throughout the years. You know, I've fallen off the deep end, and then I'm like, whoa, you know, you kind of hit rock bottom again. You're like, damn, man, that was fucking stupid.
I hit it again.
I did it again, but it's like it's a process. You're never going to be right 100% of the time, and if that's your expectations, then you're going to fail every single time. I never look at it as failure anymore. I look at it as a teaching lesson. I taught myself something, whether it's the same lesson over and over and over and over again until I figure it out. You're teaching yourself something. And that's the tough part is no one wants to do the work anymore.
Yeah, in a world of distraction and shiny object syndrome, you know, like you said, people don't even know what they want, man. Yeah, the Black Mirror, the pocket television. There's a great stand-up. It's called Straight White Male 60. Dana Carvey. I think it was the beginning of 2018. He published it, but he does a thing where he's pretending to be John Lennon talking to or Paul McCartney talking to John Lennon in heaven. He says, "Oh, you wouldn't believe they've got these little pocket baby pocket televisions, and oh yeah, if you get 100 likes, you're floating on air. One of the most popular. She's got a big bottom. It's not a normal bottom. It's an extra round bottom."
Yeah, it's a highlight reel, and that's another thing. I know I do social media, but social media has ruined so many things and so many people.
The next generation is totally fucked.
Oh,
they don't even know how to talk to people.
If they don't get out of this, they're ruined. I know content creators, because doing this for a couple of years, you meet people. I know some content creators that their life is just ruined because of content. And that's why, for the most part, I've learned to keep my private life private. Because when you make this thing full time and you do it, you need to put everything out there, and you need to be okay with the fact that you are going to get critiqued on everything.
Well, there's a lot of different ways to look at it, and there's a million different ways to get your attention on your content. You know, there's the one guy who's I think his name's Doug Sharp, maybe, but he's been doing the Fun fact. Have you seen a fun fact guy? He popped up real fast. And it's the same script, it's the same background, it's the same format. Fun
Yeah.
fact, every single one. And it's a minute and it has nothing to do with him. He doesn't share anything about his life.
Yeah.
And then there's Casey Neistat, who's an incredible filmmaker. He's on YouTube, and he had like 500,000 followers, and he started vlogging every day. He went to 1 million in like 6 months. Now he's got over 10 million, and he's since cut the daily vlog, and now he just posts whenever he wants. Couple weeks, couple months go by. But he, at one point, he describes his process for creating his daily vlog. And he said, all right, well, I want to see how I can make a 10-minute movie about my life, make it cinematic, use different angles, tell a story. But it's not about the intricacies of my life. It's just a story from every day. And obviously, the short form content for social media is different. But how ironic to use the word content. We're content with our content to keep us content, right? And it's a distraction, man. It's a massive distraction, and it's up to us to decide where we want to put our attention and what we actually want to create with our life. Because when we're looking forward, it's a year from now. It sounds so far away, but when you think a year ago, I think, wow, that feels like it was just yesterday. And we don't know how long we have, so it behooves us to figure it out, decide what we want, and then make a choice. In this world of the infinite possibilities and shiny object syndrome, it's so difficult to choose exactly what we want to do. But when we do make that choice, to bring up Jordan Peterson once again, what's up, Jordan Peterson? If you're watching this out there, great guy, waking us up, us young men who are trying to be something in the world. I just saw a clip of his the other day, and he says, you can do anything you want, given 2 caveats. You're willing to wait 5 years, and you're able to decide what it is that you want.
Yeah. So the big thing that I'm starting to understand when it comes to putting in the work and being successful, the one thing that I've heard it from plenty of people, they've talked about it, they've said it in different ways. I'm just going to say it like this. You have to be okay with dying. You have to understand you're going to die. And that is going to light that fire under you, because you do not know when it's going to happen. So that's going to make you get out there and actually work. Because I could walk out my door tomorrow and get hit by a car on Main Street, and that's it. I could be on my way to work, get into a car accident. That's it. You know what I mean? And when you become okay with the fact that you're not going to be around, because that's what everyone thinks, I have time. I'll do it tomorrow. When you go to that mindset where I'm going to die, but I'm okay, you're going to lock in and you're going to push. That's the big thing. Because if you ask everyone what's their biggest fear in life, it's dying. Then why are you waiting?
Yeah,
that's great.
Okay with dying, the people that are okay with dying have become successful because they understand it's going to happen. It can happen at any moment.
So in the movie Troy, Brad Pitt, there's a great line. I always remembered it. He said the gods envy humans. And the woman he was talking to was like, how can that be? Because we're doomed. Everything is more beautiful because we are doomed. That creates value. There is a limited amount of time that we have on this earth. And if given the choice, I wouldn't want to live forever. I wouldn't want to do this forever.
Me either.
So
I would live forever. This world is huge, man. There's so much to see, so much to experience.
So to walk that line of being hard but also compassionate, there's another one that I think is super pertinent to this conversation. It's having a seriousness to your life, but also having humor. Arnold Schwarzenegger, the greatest bodybuilder of all time, he said there were points where he'd be posing and think, how ridiculous is this? Now,
Bro, I do it every day in the mirror.
Me too.
When I'm posing and I'm sending my check-ins to my coach, I'm like, I look like such an idiot, dude. like you have to. And I've also learned to laugh at my dark moments, because I always tell people, if you can't laugh at it, what can you do?
Be afraid of it. That's it. If you laugh at it, it ceases to be fear. And there's another component where it's not laughs all the time, but without the fear, you can't activate the courage. And
Yeah.
courage is a muscle that can be used in. I never tell myself, don't be afraid. Don't be, you can never get rid of fear, but
Fear's
you
a
can
driving
always
force.
use fear to activate your courage. And another really profound insight I had about 3 weeks ago is something. I was running in the morning and I heard some animal get murdered, like in the distance. And I was like, what? I was like, what was that? And in that moment, there was a little fear, but then I was like, all right, if it's coming for me, let's go. I'm ready for this thing. But I was like, my mind did that. It brought the fear. And rather than rebel or like be afraid of it, I was like, that's a power source. My mind did that. Our minds create the fear and we rebel against it and we want to run away from it. But when you can own that power and go, I can do something that strong. And it's kind of like marching with your demons when you go, these intense feelings and these proclivities, I'm doing this, whether it's subconscious or conscious, I'm doing that. And the second you can own that and have those demons march in order, you become a force. And it's not a one-time fits all. And some days they take you. But
Yeah.
when you can at least create that pattern or the beginning of the pattern that I can harness this power, it starts to create a powerful narrative of empowerment.
Yeah, I look at it, so to back to what you were saying with the animal, with the, oh, my mind did this and then I went to that. That and I tell this to everybody. I say you need to have the mentality. If it's you or me, it's going to be you, not me. In that, because your body's going to go into fight or flight mode every day. Your body's going to fight or flight. The fight mode is you or me. Oh, buddy, it's going to be you, not me. The flight mode is where you take off. It's the same way with I'm ready for it because you were thought if it's me versus that thing, it's that thing's going down, not me.
Let
And
me ask you though.
you have the attitude in your day-to-day life.
Let me ask you though. That's yes, but that can destroy you if it's always how do you balance those moments of, all right, it's you, but also trying to be compassionate and realize somebody's going through something and maybe attacking them isn't the answer. How do you
Got to pick your
balance that?
battles.
How do you choose your battles?
You got to pick
How
them.
do you do it?
So you got it. So one thing, you have to be self-aware. You have to be self-aware of emotions and how things process. And then when you do that, you can kind of get an understanding of how someone's coming at you. Are they coming at you aggressively, or are they coming out of you because they're lost, they're confused, they're struggling? You'll be able to tell the differences, and then you got to pick your battles from there. If someone's coming at me aggressively, I know what that looks like. You can see the look in the eyes. You can tell by the body language. If someone's just lashing out for emotion, they're going like this. They're loud, they're crazy, they're wild. They're not coming at you. They're around you. And you need to understand, you need to reel that in. And 99% of the time, when you pull that in, you can get to that conversation. You can get to the root of the issue and you can figure it out. The ones who are straight running at you, that's just pure aggression. That's where you need to understand it. That's the you or me thing. When things are coming at you head on, that's the fight you need to fight. If things are just happening around you, take a step back, see if you can figure out what's going on, and try to have understanding of the situation and see if you can bring it down a few notches. And then if you try and you realize you can't, maybe that's something you need to attack head on yourself. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
you have to become self-aware of emotions, and you have to look at yourself, because for the most part, the way people react with emotions, it's the same. When people are depressed, 99% of the time, they're down, they're alone, they're dark, they're sulking, they're slumping. When they're angry, they're loud, they're abrasive, they're insulting. You know what I mean? Like it's usually the same from person to person. You just need to understand which emotion's coming out. The only way to do that is you have to figure out your own. If you can't balance your own emotions, you can't tell what the hell's going on in the world.
And you said awareness. It's funny. The word war is in awareness. A warness is kind of what it is.
Yeah, it's a war. You're aware of that. You're aware of it. Like that's And that's why if as men, if you realize, I've realized this a lot, and because I've been seeing a lot on social media. If you're out with, say, your girlfriend or whatever the case may be, she's all la-di-da-di-da having fun. You're checking your surroundings, closest exits, possible lines of attack, stuff like that. You're aware of what can happen. Okay, if something goes wrong, how can I get her out of the way? How can I do this? How can I do that? That's what we do on a day-to-day. That's what I do.
Yeah, we do.
Every second of my day, I'm looking at possible scenarios where if it hits the fan,
Dude, I'm in a Jason Bourne movie 24/7, man.
I am too. I am
Bourne.
too. I am literally thinking in my head of things that can go wrong. But when you're out with your girl, you're like, hey, what are you doing? We don't do that because this is what could possibly happen.
At this altitude, I can run flat out for 5 miles before my hands start to shake.
That's
Mark,
the awareness.
You mentioned your gym practice. I was just wondering if you do any fighting? Do you do any sparring or MMA of any kind?
No, it's just weightlifting.
Just weightlifting.
Honestly, man, I'm not a fighter. I don't fight.
You're wearing a shirt that says fighter.
So this is more so mentally. You need to, because that's the fight. Physical altercations, man. Listen, if they happen, they happen. I'm not going to go out seeking them, but I'm ready for it at the same time. So, I mean, that's just the way I look at things. This fighter is with the semicolon in it, is your story's not over. You're fighting you fight through your demon. So yes, in a way, I am a fighter, but when it comes to the outward fight, it's not really my thing, but I'm 110% ready for it. You have to be ready for it. You can't just, Keanu Reeves said it. He was talking to Drew Barrymore about being a lover or a fighter. And she said, I'm a lover, not a fighter. He said, no. He's like, if you're a lover, you have to be a fighter. And she said, what? She said, how so? He goes, because if you don't fight for what you love, then what kind of love do you have?
Oh, what a
right? Like that's what it comes down to. Like everyone, like you may not think of yourself as a fighter, but when the moments come, you'll know.
God, I love this conversation today. This contrast that we've had here, because we've had a lot of very creative conversation. We've also had a lot of women on the podcast, and we've talked a lot about the positive and the negatives in life. But this contrast is having a very masculine conversation. I think it's bringing a lot of balance to our overall picture of what our podcast is. And we've talked a lot about the shadow and the darkness, and it's the contrast of light and dark that allows us to see. Without the contrast, then we're unable to actually see anything. It's important that we have that contrast in order to see things. Just to bring in another a final question from out the air. So you're a fan of Vegeta in the animated series Dragon Ball Z. What is that character? Why does that character appeal to you? And are there any qualities from him that you try to embody in your day-to-day life?
Absolutely. So if you're a Dragon Ball Z fan, his story arc from where he started to where he is now is kind of the way I look at my life. He was someone who was brought up in a lot of chaos, a lot of wars, a lot of fights. He had a lot of internal things happening, and he was angry 24/7. All he cared about was conquering his next victim. All he wanted to do was fight, kill, and ravage. That's all this man ever wanted to do. When you first meet him, he shows up ready to kill Goku. That's what he wants to do. And then throughout the series, you start to see him change when he understands that this isn't the only option you have. And it takes him all 9 seasons to figure it out, because your old habits die hard, and he reverts a lot back to his old ways. If I don't know if any of you are fans of it, but during the Buu saga, which is the final saga of the series, he allows this, I guess his name, a wizard, to take control of him, to allow him to bring the evil in his heart back out, because that's where he thought he was his strongest. Goku was always a step ahead, and he never could understand why he could never surpass him or match him. And he thought in that moment, you know what? If I go back to this, maybe I can do it. And he realizes at the end of that, because he sacrifices himself for his wife or his kid, that dude, that's not the way. It takes this man literally 400 episodes to figure this out, and the whole story is literally him overcoming his own demons, his own struggles, his own insecurities, everything. And but you, the way he always went about it is the same way a lot of us always go about it. We just run at it and we just fight it and we get our fucking ass kicked. And then we stand in the rain like, what the hell just happened? Because you don't prepare yourself for it. He never prepared himself for anything. He just acted out, lashed out on emotions. When he was angry, fight. When he was pissed off, fight. When he was sad, fight. And he never put a strategy together, never put a plan together, never did anything. And then he does at the end. And he realizes, because he even says it. He says it because he calls him Kakarot, because that's Goku's actually his given name. He admits it. He said, "You're better because of this. This is something that I spent my whole life not knowing, and this is something you spent your entire life working." That's why they bring balance. They're the yin and the yang. You know, Goku's the light, Vegeta's the dark. Together, they make a great fucking team.
Absolutely. Bringing order to the chaos, man. Bringing
Yeah.
order to the chaos. Man, this has been an incredible conversation. Mark, it has been such a pleasure having you on our Evolution Now podcast here at the Evolution Now project. And a final question that we do love to ask our guests is not in a sense of Darwinism and biological evolution, but when you think of Evolution Now, the name of our project, what comes to mind?
You know, it's either now or never. Either you change now or you never change. You know, because at a certain point in your life, you're just gonna sit in your ways. You know, you're gonna hit a certain point and it's gonna be like, that's it. So it's either now or, and that's the thing, evolution, evolve now or never.
Simple but powerful. Hey, we just passed the 21 episode mark. 99% of people don't make it this far, and I don't think we could have had a better guest on here, Mark. So you want to just shout out your social media and anything upcoming that you're excited about?
So yeah, you guys can follow me on both Instagram and TikTok. It's the same handle. It's at Marky Hollett 32, MarkyHollett 32. I don't have much coming up, man. I'm just taking it day by day. I'm just honestly, man, I'm still searching for my full purpose and what I'm really here for. I found part of it, but man, you don't know. Everyone looks for it, their purpose, you know, and you think you come across it, but you know, I have social media, which is a great outlet for me to help people who are struggling or dealing with things or trying to find a different perspective on life. But why am I here is basically what I'm looking for.
Well,
Sometimes it's as simple as being here, and it's exciting to hear about
And
your
that's
journey.
honestly, man, the more that time that goes by, and with everything that happened, you know, with the suicide attempt, just being here, man, so far has been kind of been the message. You know, just you're here, and you're here. That's the purpose.
Well, we love your message, man, and your presence is really, it's a really solid masculine presence with some really good messages, and we're excited to put you on blast on our social and to connect as we're building this thing from the ground up. Final word, Damien?
no, just thanks for being so candid and sharing your story and putting out that light for everyone to hear. And like JJ said, we're going to blast it. We'll cut up some clips and get it out there. And until next time, boys, keep growing.
Keep
Thank
growing.
you guys for having me. It's been a blast. I appreciate it.